The rain was coming down in metal sheets, pounding against the rusted hood of my tow truck as I turned down 4th Avenue. It was past midnight. My knuckles were swollen, my lower back was aching, and all I wanted was to get home to my 6-year-old daughter, Maya, who was sleeping at her grandmother's house. I'm a single black father trying to build something out of nothing. I work 16-hour days running my own small roadside assistance company, wearing grease-stained overalls and driving a truck with 200,000 miles on it. In a city like this, people like me are invisible. Rich folks look right through you, and the system only notices you when it wants to push you down. But I keep my head up because Maya needs a hero, not a victim. I swung the truck into a dark, narrow alleyway behind the financial district to cut through traffic. That's when my headlights caught something on the wet asphalt. At first, I thought it was just thrown out trash. But as I slowed down, the glare of the lights illuminated a pair of red-bottom designer heels, a ruined silk dress, and a woman lying face down in the mud right beside a row of overflowing dumpsters. I slammed on the brakes, put the truck in park, and grabbed my heavy flashlight. Rain stung my face as I stepped out into the freezing night. I approached carefully, my boots splashing through dirty puddles. I shone the beam down on her. She was young, maybe early 30s, with dark hair soaked through, clutching a silver briefcase to her chest like her life depended on it. Her breath was coming in ragged, shallow gasps. "Hey, miss, can you hear me?" I called out, kneeling down in the mud next to her. No answer. I gently rolled her on her back. Her face was pale as ice, her lips blue, and there was a heavy dark bruise forming near her temple. Someone had attacked her. I placed 2 fingers against her neck. Her pulse was faint, fluttering like a trapped bird. "Open your eyes, miss," I said, my voice firm and grounded as I patted her cheek lightly. "Stay with me. Open your eyes." Her eyelids fluttered open just a fraction. Her bloodshot eyes locked onto mine. She was terrified, shaking violently in the freezing rain. "Help!" she choked out, her voice barely a whisper. Don't let them. Take it." Before she could finish, her eyes rolled into the back of her head, and her body went completely limp in my arms. Suddenly, the harsh beam of heavy LED flashlights blinded me from the mouth of the alley. 3 tall men in black tactical gear stepped into the darkness, their heavy boots stepping rhythmically through the water. They didn't look like muggers. They moved like train mercs. 2 of them had suppressed handguns lowered at their sides. "Step away from the woman, driver," the lead man commanded, his voice muffled by a face mask. "Leave the briefcase, walk back to your truck, and you live to see tomorrow." My heart hammered against my ribs like a caged beast. I looked down at the unconscious woman, then up at 3 armed killers. Every instinct as a father told me to survive, to get in my truck, to go home to Maya. But I'm a black man raised by a mother who taught me never to leave a defenseless soul in the dirt. "She needs an ambulance," I called out, standing up slowly and placing my heavy body between her and their weapons. "Last warning, mechanic," the lead guy sneered, raising his pistol straight at my chest. "Move, or you die right beside her." They didn't realize who they were talking to. Before I was a tow truck driver, I spent 6 years in the Army as a combat engineer. I knew how men like this moved, and I knew they weren't going to leave me alive as a witness anyway. I didn't argue. Instead, I clicked off my heavy industrial steel flashlight, plunging the alley back into pitch blackness for half a second. Before their eyes could adjust, I hurled the 2-pound steel flashlight straight at the lead guy's head. It struck him square in the face with a sickening crunch. He dropped like a sack of bricks. The second man fired, his bullet grazing my shoulder, burning like hot iron. I closed the distance instantly, grabbing his gun wrist, twisting it until the bone popped, and drove my knee into his ribs. He went down groaning into the sludge. The third man panicked, trying to aim his weapon, but I swung my heavy steel-toed boot straight into his knee, dropping him to the wet pavement before finishing him with a heavy right hook. Silence returned to the alley, broken only by the sound of falling rain and my own heavy breathing. Blood was soaking through my jacket from the graze on my shoulder, but there was no time to feel pain. I scooped the unconscious woman up into my arms, grabbed her silver briefcase, and carried her to my tow truck. I laid her across the passenger seat, threw the truck into reverse, and tore out of the alley, tires screaming against the asphalt. I knew that a public hospital was suicide. Those men had high-tech gear. They probably owned half the city's emergency services. So I drove straight to the one place I knew was safe, my friend Doc Vance's private clinic in the rough part of town. 2 hours later, she was hooked up to an 4, her head bandaged, resting on a clean bed in Doc Vance's back room. I sat in an old wooden chair across from her, my shoulder bandaged, holding a warm cup of black coffee. Her eyelids fluttered, and this time, her eyes opened fully. Clear, sharp, dark eyes. She sat up abruptly, gasping for air, her hand instantly reaching for her chest. "Where is it? Where's the briefcase?" "Easy," I said quietly, sitting forward so she could see me in the dim light. "You're safe. The briefcase is under the bed." She froze, looking at my mud-stained clothes, the bandage peeking through my torn jacket and my worn face. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling, though she tried hard to mask her fear with authority. Did you hurt those men?" "I'm Marcus," I said simply. "I'm just a guy who drives a tow truck. And as for those men, let's just say they won't be chasing you tonight." She stared at me in absolute shock. Slowly, the realization of what had happened washed over her face. She reached up, touching the clean bandage on her forehead, then looked down at her hands. "You brought me here? You fought them off?" she whispered. "Do you have any idea who those men were?" "I don't care who they were," I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. All I saw was a human being lying in the dirt who needed help. A slow, emotional breath escaped her lips. "My name is Victoria Vance. I'm the CEO of Vance Biotech." My eyebrows raised slightly. Everyone in the city knew Vance Biotech. Victoria Vance was a billionaire heiress, one of the most powerful women in the entire country. "I was ambushed by my own board of directors tonight," Victoria said, her eyes turning into cold steel. "They tried to stage a kidnapping to steal the primary drive containing our quantum computing research, the drive in that briefcase. If they got it, they would have wiped me out and taken control of the company." She looked at me, her gaze lingering on my calloused, grease-covered hands and the worn-out boots on my feet. "You risked your life for a stranger," she said softly. "You took a bullet for someone you don't even know." "What?" I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. The lock screen showed a photo of my daughter, Maya, wearing a bright yellow raincoat, smiling tag with a gap-toothed grin. "Because I have a little girl waiting for me at home," I said quietly. "And I want her to grow up in a world where men don't step over women bleeding in dark alleys." Victoria stared at the photo of Maya, tears brimming in her eyes. The cold, ruthless billionaire persona completely shattered, leaving behind a woman who was deeply moved by a simple man's quiet honor. She sat up, swung her legs over the side of the bed, and looked straight into my eyes with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "Marcus," she said, her voice shaking with genuine emotion. "Tonight, those men thought they were throwing me in the garbage. They thought nobody would care about a dying woman in a dark alley. But you saved my life, my company, and my future." She reached out, her soft, warm hand grasping my rough, calloused fingers. "Tomorrow morning, I take my company back," Victoria said, her eyes burning with unstoppable power. "And when I do, you and your daughter will never have to worry about a single bill, a single threat, or a single cold night ever again. You stood by me when I was at my lowest. Marcus, now watch how I stand by you." 3 days later, a fleet of black luxury sedans pulled up in front of my small garage. Victoria Vance stepped out, wearing a sharp white suit, a bright smile on her face, holding a giant teddy bear for Maya and a set of keys to a brand-new commercial fleet for my business. People in this city used to look through me like I was invisible. But as Victoria walked up, took my hand in front of the whole neighborhood, and smiled at my daughter, I realized something important. Real power isn't about money or suits. It's about the courage to open your eyes when the world goes dark.